let's see what happens. It's the second time I'm going live on YouTube, so
oh my gosh, I feel so privileged.
I could break the internet right now, and
we might.
We'll never know what happens. All right, so let me turn this down. Here we go. Down. All right. Okay, so we are live on YouTube, and this is another amazing Brand Doctor podcast episode for you guys. Today, I have an amazing guest. I met her through one of my mentors, Chris Doe, who happens to be her mentor too. And we connected on Instagram not too long ago, and we just have very similar values and very similar outlooks on life. And I love connecting with other branding professionals in the industry to get a different insight and a look, on how they do things and their perspectives. And it was funny, as we were having our conversation, we stumbled upon something that we both struggled with in the past. And we'll get into that in just a second, but it's insane how many folks actually struggle with this one thing. And this one thing is all about focus, and it's focusing in on the right thing, right? And the issue that we had was we were actually focusing in on the wrong thing, and we'll get into that in a second. But without further ado, I want to introduce Melinda Livsey to the show. What is going on, my girl?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It was such a pleasure to have you reach out and say, hey, we need to chat, because there are some things that we need to talk about. And so my audience may not know who you are at all. So let's give them some context. Let's take it back to the beginning and let's talk about your story. You, like myself, are a graphic designer as well by trade. And it sounds like you started right around the same time. So talk about how you got into the design world, and then how you became a strategist that gets paid 5 figures at a clip for your thinking.
Yeah. So I started, I graduated in graphic design and illustration, and then right out of school got an in-house design job at Oakley. And I was there for a pretty long time, on and off, for about 7 years. And graphic designer, did everything from marketing, advertising, helped with directing photo shoots to retail displays. Then I got into the branding department, and that is where I found my thing. I loved branding. I loved brand identity, anything to do with the brand. And so I got to know what I really liked to do at that time. And so after I was done there, I figured, okay, well, this is my time to finally do something of my own and work for myself. I've always wanted to work for myself, and I figured, okay, this is the time to do it. So that was about 4 years ago. And so I started off just offering brand identity, and I knew there was something more. I was about 6 months in, and I was just hitting a wall. Like I was hitting, financially, as far as like the budgets were concerned, that the people I was attracting and their budgets that they could afford, were just hitting the ceiling. And I didn't really know what questions to ask. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I felt like, okay, there's gotta be more than what I'm doing right now. But I just didn't even know what to ask. I didn't know what to change. And that's when I met our mutual coach, Chris Doe, and he opened my eyes to many things. But one of the biggest changes that I've had in my own career is becoming a brand strategist. But it's not only that, there were so many mindset shifts that happened along the way. And I know that's what we were talking about. One of the biggest things that I had realized in that time, that when I was a brand identity designer, it had nothing to do with me doing just design work, but it kind of all came together and all, lived in the same family, was that I was focusing on myself in the whole engagement. From the time I was trying to land a client to when I delivered it, it was all about me at that time. And I couldn't even see it. And what I realized was my problem was me and what I was focusing on. And then when I was mentored and I was growing and I was learning more, I realized, oh, it's about the client. It's about their goals. It's about what they're trying to do. it's like a no-brainer. I should know this, but it's like you can know it, but you don't know it in your heart. You can't live out of that until you really, really know it.
Where do you think that came from? The, this focusing on self so much and not being so focused on the other person?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say I was constantly in survival mode, even when I didn't need to be. Even when I was fine, I was doing really well. I had clients coming in, but it was always that worry of what if I lose this client? What if I don't land that client? Well, how much do they have? How much are they bringing with them? How much budget do they have? It was all about, am I going to survive? Will this actually work? So I was just so concerned with myself, even if I was doing completely fine. It's like I couldn't shake that fear.
Interesting. So for me, it was a little different. I'm an only child. And when I was growing up, I was bullied a lot. I was never in the popular crowd. This is going back like middle school, right? And it was like really hard for me to fit in. And I don't know why that was. It was just, I think it comes back to, being rejected by, the first girl that I ever asked out on a date. I'll never forget this, Melinda. I don't think I ever shared this with anybody, but remember when troll dolls were like super popular? Yeah. So like I bought her this cute little troll doll and I wrote this like beautiful little letter in this card and I sent it to her. And like I gave it to her and like she looked at me, looked at the card, dropped everything and ran in the other direction. And like, I was like 8 or 9, right? And I was devastated. And so that rejection, I think has, and for me to talk about this at 38 years old or 39 years old, like had such an impact on me. Right. And so for whatever reason, I like yearned for that attention because I didn't get it. And that played out into my adolescent years and my early, adult years. And like you, I always focused on myself as well. It was, what am I going to get out of this? Right. And I grew up and I still live in northern New Jersey. And I always tell this story. It's very, if you ever watched The Sopranos back in the day, it's very much like that mentality, that mafioso mentality. It's like, I'll do for you, but what are you going to do for me? And that doesn't work well in entrepreneurship.
No, it will not get you very far. It'll get you like an inch, but yeah.
So let's talk about this for a second. So what happened to make you actually make that shift? Because the shift to more client focused versus me focused, because it wasn't that easy for me to do.
No, it took a while for it to finally click. I think I was growing along the way in that mindset. And then all of a sudden it hit me like, oh, it's about them. I think one of the big
hit
things,
you?
Yeah, well, it hit that I am there to help the person in front of me reach whatever goal it is that they're trying to get to. I might be the answer for it. I might not be the answer for it. That means I might have to refer them elsewhere and that I might not be able to work with them. But it finally hit me that my main goal when I work with clients and really with anyone that I'm even talking to is that I'm there to help someone else get to where they're wanting to go. First, I got to figure out what is it that they want? Where are they going? So then I can see if I can be of service instead of coming first with assumptions and wants of my own, that I came in with questions. And I think that was one of the things that helped switch my mindset was Chris, being mentored by Chris, helped me by asking me questions and making me think that just being in that position of being asked questions, I realized, oh, I need to be asking questions to my own clients. And so the more I would ask questions, then I started having that mindset shift that oh, I don't come in with the answers. I don't come in with the advice. I go in to ask questions and discover what is going on.
You know what happened? So that is amazing. And I'm so happy that you actually were able to find that epiphany and make that switch. It was funny when I got a similar experience where it was, I just landed, I didn't land a client. And my wife asked me, and this is going back years ago though, my wife asked me, well, what was their issues? What were their problems? What did you learn from that client? And I looked at her with a blank stare. And I was like, I don't know. And she goes, so my wife has a way with words. And I always tease her. I said, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But so her office is upstairs. My office is here. And she sometimes hears conversations, client calls and sales calls and so on. And she goes, how the hell are you going to learn about what challenges and pain points people have when you're doing all the talking? I listened to you and you didn't shut up for 30 minutes.
Oh, wise woman. Wise woman.
And that stung a little bit, but that was the lesson learned. And then like once Chris started asking deeper questions, and sometimes he didn't even ask deep questions. He asked like common sense questions. And I was like, holy shit, this is right under my nose and I don't even see it. So taking that focus off of ourselves and putting it on the client, think about it. Like, did you ever meet someone who like spotlighted you and highlighted you as like the number one topic of conversation of the night, of the day, whatever? They made you feel like $1 million. Like, what did that feel like? Right? That's how we should be treating our prospects and our clients. Not, it's all about me. This is what I could do for you. It's tell me more. Right. And let that conversation just go. Mm-hmm. And they're going to tell you everything that you need to know. Right.
Yeah. I love that you said, tell me more. Those are that question or comment really, tell me more, and how so. Those two things I use so much in conversation. So if someone says something, I ask how so, as in give me an example. Where has that played out? Or tell me more. When you just say those two things, like you said, the doors open up. People tell you what they're going through. People tell you what they're struggling with. And sometimes you find out the reason why they came to you in the first place is not really what is going on. They think that's what's going on, but it's really not. Like maybe they came in for a rebrand when really their processes are a complete and utter mess, and they shouldn't even be touching a rebrand until they fix some of the things that are broken, that are causing major, major issues. So if you don't ask these questions, you're not going to know whether or not what they came in thinking is really what the issue is.
Yeah. Now, did you ever get nervous to ask certain questions? And so talk to me about that. Like, how did you get through that feeling of uncomfort when, I have a slew of questions that I want to ask, but as the person's talking, or I start to, maybe I shouldn't ask that question, or, and you just get you get an uncomfortable feeling and you start to get overwhelmed and scared and fear starts to roll in, and then you don't ask the question. How do you work through that? And how did you work through that to ask the bold questions that need to be asked?
Yeah, well, that's a great thing to bring up, because I was really scared even to ask questions that I thought were common sense. So if I asked the question, I feared that the person across the table would look at me like, why are you even asking that question? Like the idea of asking someone, well, why do you need a logo? That freaked me out at the beginning, because I figured, well, isn't that an obvious answer, especially if they're just starting their business? Why wouldn't they need a logo? So I was already answering the question in my mind thinking, this is a really dumb question. They're going to look at me like I'm dumb for asking this. So that was one of my big fears. And I think just doing it and just trying it and feeling uncomfortable, asking the question and just feel it. And then see what comes out of their mouths and see where the conversation goes. There were plenty of times where I asked what I thought were stupid questions, and it turned out to be either, okay, that didn't go as planned, or it did go how I thought it was going to, and it wasn't good. But then I could reevaluate why, what was their answer? How could I change it next time? What would make it make more sense in the grand scheme of things? And by doing that over and over and over and getting in really uncomfortable situations, putting myself there, but still doing it and not overanalyzing myself out of it, overthinking it, then I was able to get over it and learn what questions actually I needed to ask.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned as I was getting over this fear is these people are coming to you for a reason. They're stuck. And they're looking for you to help them get out of this rut or get out of this feeling or this situation. And so with that comes a lot of, so when you think this way, you may sometimes feel like you have to have all the answers. And that's something that I dealt with, where I have to give this person an answer because they paid me $100 for this call, or I have to deliver this because I'm the brand doctor. I'm supposed to know everything. And that's not the case. And so when people ask me, I love this question, how can you help me? How can your company help me? And I used to be like, well, I could do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. Now I'm like, well, I have no idea who you are. I have no idea what your business is. I have no idea how I can help you. What do you need help with? And I always thought that was like a dumb question or like a snotty answer, a snotty response, but it's a very good question. It's a valid question. And I think people need to ask those fundamental questions first. Like, I don't know how I can help you. And again, Chris helps us explain how so important it is to deliver the right tone and voice, right? There's a lot of ways you can respond, and you can turn someone off because it comes across condescending. It comes across rude. It comes across, right? And so you always have to look at and then analyze how you're coming across. But don't be afraid to ask those questions, and know that you don't have to have the answer to everything. And the one thing I love about Chris is the situation is what it is. Like, it's nothing more, it's nothing less. How often do you create these crazy scenarios in your head, and then you realize, shit, that is not the case at all. It's literally, it's what it is. It's they don't have X, Y, Z. Like, so it's how do you get through that? How do you, Melinda, get through those scenarios?
I think a very simple answer is, when I ask questions, I write down what I hear and I repeat back to them. This not only helps them know that I understand what's going on, it actually helps me understand what's going on. So the more I can, like you were saying, we overcomplicate things and we create scenarios, but to not do that, you keep focused on the person you're talking to. You repeat back what you hear. You write down the notes. You check in and say, this is what I heard. Is this what's going on? And you make sure at the first goal of the communication between you and a potential client should be how to understand why they came to you, what the problem is, who they are, what's their goal. We want to understand first. And so I keep myself focused by repeating back what I hear them say, and to check in to make sure, did I understand this correctly? Is this what is going on? And then and once they say yes, then I can ask deeper questions to get to the root, if I haven't got there yet, of that. So that's how I stay present and focus on what really the issue is.
Have you ever had someone give you like a rude response? Like, why are you asking me these questions?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So how do you handle that?
It was a very awkward conversation. And it was early on in me trying to learn how to ask better questions.
So
And
walk us through that whole scenario.
oh gosh, it was so awkward. It was, someone had contacted me for a logo, and it was right at the beginning when I was learning. I was learning brand strategy. I was learning how to ask better questions. I was learning how to make it more about them. I kind of failed this call, but he had asked for a logo, and I said, great, I'm glad you came to me. Can I just ask you some questions about, your business and how this fits in with your business goals? And he was already hesitant with that question. And then, so he let me ask. And so I asked, well, what was the motivation behind you wanting a logo? What's driving this? What's going on in your business? What will this help you do? And he didn't have the answer, but in that, I could tell that maybe it was even the way I had asked the question, it put him on the defense. Like, why are you even asking me this? I don't feel comfortable. I think he might have even said that. I don't feel comfortable talking about this. And so, and being that it was my first few calls and I'm trying to figure this out, I'm like, this isn't going well. What is going on? And so, he come to find out in my question asking, there were no business goals, and he didn't know why he was even asking for a logo. Somebody had told him he needed one, but he didn't even know. He didn't. So he was like, I was just told I should, and that my website was outdated, but you could tell he didn't believe it. So I didn't know what to do with that conversation because I just didn't have enough experience and even what to ask. And so I ended up referring him elsewhere because his budget was also extremely low. And so, but it was a really awkward conversation.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been in those situations before where, my father, I tell this story a lot, but like my father, he raised me on his own. And every weekend we would go up. He was building this house in Pennsylvania. So it was about a 2-hour ride from where we lived in Jersey to the Pennsylvania where he was building this house. So as a kid, like I remember asking him why questions all the time. And he would be like, what are you writing, a book? And that would just completely shut me down. Yeah. Right. And I would not ask any more questions. And that became like the state. I was so afraid to ask questions because I was afraid to get a response like that. Right. And I love my father to death. I love him to death. He's my rock. He's my number one. He did the best he could with raising me as a single dad. But that was definitely a disservice to me, is to not be patient with answering those questions. And, I've had people say flat out, I am not hiring you for this. I'm hiring you for that. So why are you even asking me these questions?
How do you respond?
So I respond, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out what is the real issue here, because it's not for something tells me that it's not a logo, that it's not a website, that it's not a funnel. There's something else. And I'm just trying to diagnose the situation so that I can prescribe, as the brand doctor, I could prescribe the best solution for you. Mm-hmm. And that kind of diffuses their defense. Like it sort of kind of like takes their defense down a notch, and they're like, okay, I kind of understand that now. And then we get on to that conversation, again, taking the emotion out of the conversation. And I'm a really emotional guy, so it's really hard for me to do that, but taking that out, and that's where Chris is just like, he is like a Jedi with that stuff, where he is emotionless. I don't know if I could ever get to that level, but just looking at the situation for what it is, instead of, again, associating all of these feelings to it, or thinking like you're going to get rejected, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen, when it never did. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, what is, remember that guy, Errol, have you watched any of those videos? Errol Gerson. Oh my God. I love that guy. Fear is, what is it? False evidence appearing real. Like that is so that like I should get that tattooed on me because it's so important to understand that a lot of the lack of questioning comes from fear. So if we can get over that, like what's going to stop us? What's going to stop us? And I think our clients honestly want us to ask those questions. Listen, the real clients, people are going to be assholes, and you're going to get an asshole that says, why are you asking me these questions? Right. You could respond too, like, why are we talking? If you don't want to give me answers to questions that are going to help you, then why are we even here?
Yeah.
Like, put it back on them and just give it to them straight and see what they say. I think what you need to, if you want to demand 10K strategy sessions and you want to work with higher ticket clients, you better have a set of balls to come along with it, because if you don't, then they will pummel you in the ground. I've seen it. I've talked to Chris about this in nauseum about, I used to attract these alpha types that want to just dominate you because they gave you a lot of money. And like, that shit doesn't fly with me. So what I used to do in the past was I would go back at them with just as much force as they would come with me. And it's like two rams out in the middle of a field.
Yeah. Boom. Instead of diffusing it and bringing them down to a
right. So what have we learned? When you get that energy coming at you, it's like the bull, right? Yeah. So the bull's going to come at you full steam. We just have to get out of the way and let that energy fly by and let it go. Right. Yeah. So I'll give you a funny example. I was with a client who was extremely condescending, and he was a straight up bully. He gave me 50 grand up front, and he demanded like everything. Like, he demanded me to shut down my business for him. Basically, he never said that in his words. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'll give you the funny. So we were like two rams in the course of, it was going on about a month's worth of work, right? 2 rams, boom, boom, boom. And I didn't know what I was getting. One day I would get him and he would be in an awesome mood and he would be the nicest guy. He would be a blast to work with. And then the next second I'm getting like vicious text messages. Where's my stuff? Like nasty, right? So I didn't know. I was Jekyll and Hyde, right? So the one day I'm driving to New York for an interview, and he sends me this text message where we had set milestones. Like, you get me this information by this, and I will have this by this day, right? 2 days prior to the deadline, he's asking for the work. So I'm like, it's not due yet. And like, my team is still working. So it will be due. We will talk on Wednesday, right? And like, he was like, I want my money back and this and that, and let's just do that. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Let me get on the phone and let's have this conversation, right? So I get on the phone with him and I said, what's the issue here? We set deadlines and milestones and we're good, right? And I said, well, he was like, well, you know what? It's just not working out. Why don't you just give me my money back? And I've put in 58 hours worth of work already, right? My team and I and everything, right? Thank God for Time Doctor. I don't know if you use Time Doctor, but Time Doctor is a phenomenal software. It tracks the second of everything that you do. Good. Right. So I knew exactly how much time we worked on the project. Right. So I said, listen, I'm in the process of traveling to the city and I have an interview. He goes, what? He goes, you're going to the city? You're not working on my project? And this is when I said, okay, blank, I'm done torturing you. I don't want to torture you any further. So why don't we do this? Let me get home. Let me look at how many hours I worked, and I will gladly refund you your money and, minus my costs. Right. Mm-hmm. And he was so up in arms about that. Well, I run 4 multi-million-dollar businesses. And if you want to go hour by hour, I'll send you an invoice for the time you wasted on me. And I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. Right. I was like, I'm going to send you $40,000 today. By the end of the day, you'll have it before you sit down for dinner. And I said, we will go our separate ways. And he was like, well, I want it by noon. I said, it's never going to happen because I'm in the city. Okay. So I just stood up to the guy. And I'm not going to bully. You're not going to bully me. Right. And I just was like, this is what we'll do. And you know what was interesting, Melinda? He said to me, all right, we'll go our separate ways and we won't talk about this to anybody. I'm not going to badmouth you. You don't badmouth me, and we'll go our separate. And that right there, I found very interesting. I didn't say that. I didn't give a shit if he went out and said anything about me because I knew what the real deal was, right? But for him to say that out loud made me realize like there's something way deeper here going on with this person that I will never realize and I will never figure out, right? So like, those are just some situations where things are going to get heated. Things are going to get hot. There'll be a lot of money on the table. You're going to feel stressed. You're going to feel pressed. What do you do? So what has Melinda done in these situations where, have you ever had a 10K strategy go sour and you had to refund or you had to, deal with that situation?
I actually haven't.
You have? Good.
I haven't. Yeah. No issues there. I think, but you had touched upon something I think was really interesting is you said there's something deeper going on with these people, right? So, and just like your stories about, which we all carry those deeper things. So you carry what you had mentioned today about the story when you were 8 with this, the troll and the girl and everything. And then your dad about questioning you about questioning. So we have, and I have my own, my gosh, like even survival mode goes back to my childhood of not sure where we're going to live and money and all that. So we bring all of this to the table with us. It's like this emotional baggage we're bringing. And same goes for clients. They're coming in with like that client for you. He's coming in with who knows what's going on. Personal, professionally, every past childhood, you name it. So he's coming in there. And I think when you had said about Chris being emotionless, what I'm learning is all that baggage, we have on our backpack, we lay that down. Yes. We lay that down the best we can so that we can go forward and look at our client in the eye and try and figure out what's really going on. Some people were never going to figure that out. Like that one client, I don't think anyone, it's just not going to work. There's a point where you see, okay, that's a little too much for me to handle, but other people, you can dig deeper. You can find out what that emotional issue is, and you can then work with it like Chris's jujitsu with managing energy or getting out of the way or identifying what's going on. Like hearing hesitation in their voice or hearing that something's going on with their team, that there's so many issues in business that happen professionally and personally that affect business, that if we're able as consultants to identify, then they will feel hopefully safe enough to be like, that is really what's going on. And I don't know what to do about it. And it's causing all this to happen in my business because of it. Yeah. So it's in a deeper level. We are managing emotions and we are managing energy, and we have to leave our own stuff at the door and say, you know what, I might not be able to pay everything I need, all my whatever it is, freelancers, rent, if someone's just starting out and they don't have a runway yet, that they have to just put all that aside for a minute and just look at the person right in front of them. Yeah. And try and figure out what's going on with them.
Yeah. And it all goes back to today's conversation is it's not about us. It is about them. And when you take ourselves out of the equation and put the emphasis on them, you get a completely different perspective on things. And I think what was it? Oh, there was a quote out there that, what was it? Ego disguises insecurity. ego disguises insecurity. And I think when people have these giant egos, that there's something going on there where they're just insecure about something. And if we don't have to address it. We're not playing therapist here, but when we recognize that and we know that, okay, let's stay away from that, because that's not, we see what's going on here. He's got the issue or she's got the issue. Let's just look at the situation the best way we can look at it and say, what's the best way we can come to terms here? What is fair to you? And let me think about that and see what's fair to me. And let's come to a mutual, understanding. I think when we do that, when you take the ego out of it, when you take ourselves out of it, it just opens up a lot of opportunity and a lot of different discussions, rather than discussions that are going to constantly be the ramming bulls, right? So how do you navigate those conversations? And God, Melinda, I could talk to you for hours about this stuff. It's crazy how 45 minutes blew by in like 4 minutes.
I know. Well, I want to touch upon really quick that quote that you said, ego disguises insecurity. That right there describes where I was at before I had the mindset shift. Not saying I don't have my times of being insecure. I definitely do. But I was living in the ego, living in it before that. And so it was because I was disguising the insecurity. That's why we talk about ourselves so much when you try to, prove ourselves, of when we answer those questions of what can you do for me when a client asks. When we try to prove ourselves and talk too much, it's coming out of that ego, because it's coming out of us trying to cover up the fact that we're insecure. Whereas a very confident person would go, just like you said, I don't know. I don't know. Why are we here? What did you come here for? Who are you? What do you need to do? Where are you going? And what issues are you running into getting there? So I love that you had said that, because I think that perfectly describes where I was at and what now, at least I'm aware of that I can fall into that trap. And the more we become aware of that, the less we have to live in it every day. Yeah. You can let that go.
Yeah. I love it. And I think when you give more than you receive, you wind up getting more in return. And I think that's where we need to understand. I just read this book, Overdeliver, by Brian Kurtz, and he mentioned briefly inside the book about givers, takers, and matchers. So the givers are just the ones that give without receiving anything in return or expecting anything. The takers are the ones. I was a taker. Listen, I was a taker for many, many years, and I know that person inside and out. And it got me so far. Like you said, it gets you so far, and then there's a glass ceiling there. Okay. And then there's matchers. You do for me, I do for you. And you tit for tat, right? And you're only going to be so influential at that level. But the ones that really excel are the givers, and the ones that take themselves out of this equation, take the ego out of the equation, and just look at things for what they are. And you're there as a guide. You're there as a teacher. You're there as an advisor, and you're just there to help. And I think when you can articulate that in a way that will help that person you're talking to understand, you're not there for anything other than to put them in a better place than they are right now. It just diffuses everything. So like you, it takes practice. It takes skill. It takes time and energy and focus and clarity. And you really got to know yourself before you can help other people. And I just want to emphasize that, because there's a lot of people out there that are trying to serve, but they're not ready yet. And they just haven't been able to, I guess, accept that. So make sure you work on yourself before you can work on other people. And I'll leave you with this, and then we got to wrap up. There was this quote I heard from Jim Rohn, and he said, I'll promise to take care of me for you if you promise to take care of you for me. And that there is something that I live and die by, because I used to always try to take care of the other person before myself. and it left me worse off.
Mm-hmm.
I was clearly not in a position to help anybody, right? But I was like trying so hard. Then I started to focus on helping myself in order to help others. And that changed the game. And so I sort of live and die by that philosophy now. And it's our philosophies that are going to get us through life, nothing else. And so if you have a shitty philosophy, good luck. So, working on yourself is one thing, but when you're working with clients and trying to get clients solutions, right? You should be working for that testimonial. You should be working for that text message where they write you, holy shit, just landed another 10K client. Like, that's what we should be working for. And when you focus on that, you're going to have so much work, you're not even going to know what to do with it.
100%. Completely.
Any closing remarks there, Melinda?
Oh gosh. Just to repeat your quote that you brought up, the ego disguises insecurity. That was good. Yeah. I know that's my takeaway from that, from today.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your insights and being Melinda. And one thing I love about you, Melinda, is you don't try to be anybody but you.
Thank you.
And that's amazing. Like on and off the camera, like you are who you are. And that's something that other people that are watching this and people that are going to watch this from days to come and listen to this on the podcast is don't try to be something that you're not. And people are going to recognize that. They're going to appreciate you for it. They're going to love you for that. And that's what's going to get you more business. That's what's going to help build a personal brand. That's what's going to help you build that legacy that I know you all want to leave behind. So at the end of the day, guys, we didn't even get into the doc's prescription. We didn't even do the community question of the day. Like, it was just a killer conversation. So my apologies for not including that in today's message, but I owe you two on the next one. Here's the deal, guys. It's not about you. And if you want to build a profitable and reputable personal brand, you have to give. You have to seek to understand before you're understood. You have to do these things in order to build a thriving business. So it's up to you. Hire Melinda, hire me. We can only do so much for you. You have to take that, what I just said, and you have to execute that. We can only help you to a certain point, and then you have to take that plunge. You have to take that next step. So think about that when you're working with clients and ask yourself, if I bring this client on, will I work my ass off to get that testimonial? Will I work my ass off to get them the results that they're looking for? Because it's not just about how much money you can make for them. I think it's more about how better of a life you can create for them. Mm-hmm. And so start focusing in on those types of thought processes and you'll have a big business. Believe me, you'll have the business that you want. Doesn't have to be big, but you'll have the business and you'll have the clients that you want because quality attracts quality. So Melinda, real quick, before we jet, tell my audience where they can learn more about you and where they can find you on social.
Yeah, they can find me. My website is marksandmaker.com. I have a lot of resources there for designers who want to get paid to think. And then I hang out on Instagram all the time, Melinda Livsey. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
Can't get away from you.
Everywhere.
I love it. Melinda, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And this will not be the last, I am sure. Thank you so much again for coming on and spending your time with us today.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
And there you have it. Another Brand Doctor podcast in the books. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know in the comments on YouTube what your biggest takeaway was. If you have any further questions for me and Melinda, drop them in the comments as well. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or any of those online platforms, don't forget to leave a quick little written review. Those reviews, I read every single one. I shout you out and I appreciate those. Those are the fuel that light this fire and keep this show moving forward. So thanks again for all you guys watching. We're up to like 53,000 downloads a month now, which is unbelievable. So I can't thank you guys enough for supporting the Brand Doctor podcast, and it's just been a blessing. So have an amazing day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode real soon. Take care.